Hello, everyone, and as always, I thank you for coming to my talk show, Tell It Like It Is. I'm your host, Morris Man, and my co-host,
Joseph Spencer.
and today we're going to have a fun topic, a topic that everybody can relate to at some point in their life, and that topic is music. And let me just say this before I turn it over to Joe. Music has always been a very important part of my life. I can recall when I was growing up, there was always music in the house. There was a piano. My mom used to sing. My dad used to sing. I have a brother who sings and looks like Smokey Robinson. It was just, we were a happy clan when it came to our music. And I picked up guitar. I learned how to write songs, arrange, engineer, produce. And music is something that basically takes you throughout your entire life as far as an enjoyment. You might have a moment in your life where you kind of stop. And I did that. I had a moment in my life that I had to stop, kind of reflect on my life. But later on, I picked up my guitar from up under my bed, dusted it off, and got back to playing. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on music, and what do you think?
Well, my history in music, there was certain music in the household was considered as devil's music.
Okay.
And some music you had to go off and sneak and listen to. But I started getting, my music thing is pretty eclectic. I started getting to jazz when I was a kid.
Okay.
Like you said, you're a musician. I'm not. I do sing a little bit. Well, I used to, like you said.
Well, you're still considered a musician.
Okay, well, now I don't read, so.
I didn't for a while neither. I mean, funny you mentioned that. The first 10 years of my life, I didn't know how to read music. And
You can.
And one day, it's like things happen for a reason. One day I went to a jazz club with a friend of mine, and there was a guitar player by the name of Phil Cease from Chicago. Hello, Phil. And he was actually supposed to be there that day. He was sitting in because their original guitar player in that band, he was somewhere else doing a gig. So Phil sat in with these guys, and he just blew me away. And I knew at that point, in order to get to that level of playing like Phil, which I think I'm not there yet, but I'm close, that I had to learn how to read music because your ear can only take you so far, And after seeing Phil that day, I signed up again diligently to learn how to read music because I went through the traditional way of learning how to play, but the way that they taught you back in that era, they deliberately tried to kind of keep you for 2 years. When you're supposed to read these songs out of the book that you would never learn or really never go out and learn to play, or should I say play, because I don't think there's a big demand for Mary Had a Little Lamb, But the reasoning supposedly was
how you play it.
true, or I'm playing in front of a bunch of kindergartens.
Yeah.
But the reasoning for that was in order to play what you want to play off the radio, you got to learn this. That's absolutely false. I found that out a couple of years ago. So after going to these classes, I kind of dropped out. Phil researched my desire to learn how to read. And then right after that performance, the next day I got on the phone. I started calling places. I met a guy by the name of, what is his name? Michigan Avenue. But anyway, I'm sorry that I forgot his name. But I learned how to read through this guy. He taught me in less than one lesson how to cut to the chase and learn how to read. So I went back the next week to see Phil play again, and the other guy came back, the original member, guitar player. He was awful. So it's like things happen for a reason. Because if I would have went the second time and seen the awful guy, I would have never really had that desire, urge to say I need to go back and learn how to read when I seen Phil C play. So it's just interesting that things happen for a reason. And Phil was there that day that I came to see this band play, and he just blew me away. So that's when I decided to learn and try to stick to learn how to read music. And once I did, it's like I just kicked the door wide open. I started to buy sheet music and play everything like the record, chords that I couldn't figure out because of the way that the song was structured. I couldn't hear it in the mix. Because if I can hear it, I mean, if you can isolate the guitar parts or any other part, you might can be able to pull it off from A to Z. But sometimes, depending on the arrangement, you can't hear it, So it's good to know.
Not reading music, I was busted out on a lot of studio jobs, like commercials and stuff.
Yeah,
but
and that's when you really need to know how to read because it's easy if you got a pretty good ear to play in the band because you can hear the songs off the radio and you try to emulate it. But like you said, when you have those kind of gigs, you don't know what they want from you. And then when you sit down, they give you the sheet music and say play. So
I thought I was safe because I said once I hear the piano and the the bass and the lead guitar, I could just take it from there because I used to have a pretty good ear, like that. I hear a piece of music and I sing it. It's not like being able to see the notes on the piano or the guitar. You just sing it. But in the studio, the bass player might play by himself and. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
And the guitar player may play it by the, and then you come in and put the vocals in. But you got to have that sheet music in front of you.
yeah, I mean it's good to be able to. I'm glad I learned in the sequence that I did because I first tried to do it the traditional way, classes, trying to read music, and then I abandoned it and just started to rely on my ear. And my ear became very good. But again, you can only take your ear so far. And then I'm glad that later on I grasped the concept of theory because if I would have learned theory first and didn't develop my ear, I don't think that I would be the musician that I am today. Because I know a lot of musicians that traditionally went that route of let me read first. And once you do that, you don't rely on your ear and you don't develop your ear. Because since I couldn't read at that point, I had to develop my ear. I had nothing else to fall back on.
Yeah, but like you said, you had people in your family with musical talent, so it was an inherited thing. My brother and I were the only one in our family could sing, and both of us were artists. I'm a sculptor, and do drawings and stuff, and he did a lot of drawings. I don't know if he could sculpt, because we parted earlier in life. But he could sing. He could, he'd hear it and he could sing it.
Yeah. Just like my oldest brother. Again, he sings like Smokey Robinson and looks like Smokey Robinson, and the women love him.
I bet they do.
Yeah, I mean, that's one talent musically that I wish that I had, because I do sing a little bit as far as harmonies.
Let's hear it.
Back in, right. You run everybody out of the studio. Look at Tom frowning. But I do background because I have an ear for that and arrangements, but I wish that I could really sing well because, as you know, the singer is always the vocal point of the band.
Front pieces.
He's the front piece.
You guys are the one that put everything together.
Yeah, with the backdrop. And actually, I like being in the background. Yeah. I mean, every now and then, every blue moon, I wouldn't mind being up in the front for a moment to be featured, but I'm comfortable with my position within the band, instead of I'm the guy with the mic in my face, Don't want to be that guy because there's a lot of pressure on that guy. Because everybody focuses on that guy. Not us.
Yeah, you got to be charming and be talented and be cute and all that crap.
And when you mess up, everybody knows because they're looking at you. When we're in the background, we might hit a wrong note or two. Nobody notices it, provided that we keep playing and not looking, suspicious or suspect.
And nobody go turn around and say, well, he wrote that shitty piece. They're not going to do that to you.
Exactly. Because here is something interesting. When I was a teenager, my baseball coach said he went to go see the Staple Singers.
Okay.
Papa Staples and the Staple Singers. And he said the lead singer, I forgot her name. She's done some stuff with Prince lately. And she was singing and she was singing. She had low cut, sequence dress on, and she was bending down, and one of her breasts fell out. And still terrified to run off the stage, she put that breast back in and kept singing. And when you do that, it takes the attention off of what just happened. Because people react based on your reaction. She could have freaked out like, oh my goodness, and run off the stage. Yeah, well, that was staged. Nowadays, these people, it's like, let's put this in, and it happened, but it was an accident. Yeah, right. But who would you say is your all-time favorite artist or band?
Jimi Hendrix.
Okay. And jazz. Why? What puts Jimmy on the top?
What put Jimmy on the top is because he was totally original, and he took back the black people's place in rock and roll. He let people know that rock and roll is black music. Not Elvis Presley or whoever these little white boys was. I'm not president. Right. But he let people know that that's where rock started, with black people. Yeah.
Well, I was once told, and it makes sense to me, in order to be successful, regardless of what industry you're in, you got to be either one of these three things: first, best, or difference. Right. Jimmy was first.
He was first,
and he was different. Yeah, he was different, and he wasn't afraid to say, "Hey, I'm about to do something that it's not expected of a black man to do." And he did it, and he did it extremely well. Jimmy was an unbelievable talent.
Right.
a lot of people, you know, the younger generation, and this is nothing bad against Prince. I mean, we all do this as musicians. We observe. And when we observe someone, we become excited about doing what they do, and we emulate it. And Prince is a combination of Little Richard,
yeah.
Jimi Hendrix, and the guitar players from James Brown, JB's, you know.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Jimi Hendrix played with James Brown.
Yeah, Jimi Hendrix played with James Brown. He played with the Isley Brothers. He played with B.B. King. He played with a couple of other people before he decided to do his thing.
Jimi Hendrix, yeah.
Right, become Jimi Hendrix, and he did well. I mean, Jimmy had an ability to just switch over. You know, he started from R&B, rock and roll roots. Then he decided he wanted to do the hardcore acid rock, psychedelic thing. You know, and I like to listen to. You know, because when you think of Jimmy, of course you think of the screaming guitar solos and the feedback, but he was a pretty good acoustic guitar player.
He was a wonderful classical guitar player. I had the pleasure of listening to him in 1965 in a little club on Cedric. Jimi Hendrix and Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
And Jimi Hendrix busted out the acoustic guitar. He was a musician. He was a musician's musician.
And what's interesting about Jimi Hendrix is he couldn't read music.
He couldn't?
Couldn't read a note of music. Yeah, couldn't read a note. And I find that to be extraordinary as a guitar player.
It is.
Because
to listen to a piece and then play it.
Yeah.
Note for note.
Yeah, because I'm more or less a rhythm guitar player. I do my lead solos when it's asked of me in the band, but I'm more or less a rhythm guitar player. But Jimmy, of course, was more a heavy. He was a good combination of both, but of course, his soloing is what took him to the stratosphere.
Oh man,
and
he would live. I heard Jimi Hendrix play live, not mixed, not off a board, just plug it in and play it.
Yeah, and what's interesting is as a lead guitar player is you have to know your scales and know what key you're in.
Right.
Because it was so easy when I didn't know how to read music. I would always fall out of key when I'm doing my solos. You know, I'm trying to memorize a little spot on the fretboard where I'm going to stay safe. You know, I'm not going to go no further than this, because if I go up here, I'm going to get lost and be hitting wrong notes.
I think that's why he did a lot of them riffs. You go off on the riff. You go off on the wonderful riffs the way he should do. You know, and you go off on those riffs. Who can tell the difference? It just sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, as we discuss this topic of music, I wanted to kind of interject and just put this in there because it's very important. Black people are very receiving, very warm, and very inviting, and that's wonderful. And I give you a good example. And I got nothing against these artists. They're actually very talented people, but you know, JT, John B., Alan Thickeson, these guys can sing their tails off. They're very talented, and as you notice, their music is geared towards R&B, black music, and we accept them. We buy their records, we go to their concerts, and nothing. Again, I stress nothing wrong with that. But here's my issue: it's 2013. Where are the black rock bands? Matter of fact, where are the black bands now? You know, and here's the argument that people throw at me when I say this. Well, black people don't want to do rock. That's nonsense. There are a lot of talented black bands out there, but they're not getting record contracts. You know, we can't get a piece of their money. And here it is, 2013. But, you know, the Eminems can come on board and do our music and make millions, but we can't do rock. Prince opened up for the Rolling Stones in the late 70s. They threw rocks at him. And as you know, Prince can rock with the best of them. Yeah. And what most of us didn't realize, the majority of Prince's early albums, he had at least one rock song on each of them. The first album, Just For You, he had Just As Long As We're Together. The second one, I guess it was a self-entitled one where he was on the riding on the horse naked, Bambi, which is one of the funkiest rock tunes or the rockiest rock tunes I've ever heard. And that was the best guitar solo to me personally that I've ever heard him do. And I tried to emulate it on YouTube, and I did a pretty decent job. You know, what are your thoughts on that? I mean,
well, R&B is like the white folks in the 1860s, the plantation owners. You understand what I'm saying? So the masses don't want to give up its power. So.
And we should demand it. Right. It's like we just accept stuff, and it's like, you know, I'm not accepting that. And
I've met black women that didn't mention some R&B singers. I've never heard of them. What are you black? Well, obviously I am. Well, I like rock and roll, jazz, and classical music.
Right. I like all types. I
You know,
mean,
I'm not too much into R&B. When I was a kid,
well,
I
I
would,
find good in every form of music.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, well-
but I do lean more towards certain musics than others.
yeah.
But you know, it's just sad that here it is, 2013. There are no black rock bands, R&B, rock.
Rock,
You know,
yeah.
the early stages
Yeah.
of rock. Little Richard. You know, he's screaming and people not listening that they stole from me, and they stole from him.
Yeah, they stole it from
He
yeah.
said that when the Beatles came to the United States, they were his shadow.
They were looking for him,
And
yeah.
shortly after them hanging out with Little Richard, they started that hitting that high note.
Yeah.
Woo, and they weren't doing that until they met Little Richard and studied him.
It was like American Idol. And these young people, well, I'm going to sing a song by so and so and so, some little rock, famous little people now of their era. And it was music from the 60s or the 50s. And they saying this musician that was born 20 years ago, this is the music that they wrote. I'm going, no, that's not so and so. This music was sung by so and so. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, we got to address that because what Joe is talking about is sampling. And one of my very first YouTube videos was I did a tutorial on how to play Footsteps in the Dark because that's why I initially started initially doing that. You know, that was my purpose on YouTube, was to bridge the gap of where are the black guys that are going to teach the young black guys how to play these kind of songs, because it's hard to find sheet music for this music. So that's where I came in and said I'm going to, you know, give my contribution.
Man, I forgot about sheet music.
And I had a guy give a comment, because I've gotten a lot of good positive comments, nothing but positive comments on that video. And one guy said, I'm really surprised you didn't make a Ice Cube reference. I'm like, why? Ice Cube didn't write this. Ice Cube stole it. You know,
Yeah.
there's a difference between I sit down with 3 other guys and write an original composition versus I come along after they done it and steal a little piece of it and put it in my song and call it my song. No, that's not your song. That's the original, the people that composed it.
Right, the people
you know?
composed it.
And we went back and forth with this conversation. I was like, look, sir, no disrespect. This is about the Isley Brothers and how to play their song. This ain't got nothing to do with Ice Cube. So we're done here with this conversation. There's some people that honestly believe that they made stuff when they stole it.
Right.
I give you another quick example and then I'll let you take it. Coolio, you know, the rapper with the wild hair.
Yeah.
He stole, or should I say, he used Stevie Wonder's Paradise.
How could he get away with that?
Paradise.
Oh.
And well, sometimes they just straight out take it and hope they don't get sued, and sometimes they go through the normal channels of getting the license and rights. So, Fool's Paradise, I believe, is the original Stevie Wonder song. He used that in his song, Gangsta's Paradise. Then Weird Al Yankovic came around and did a parody of it, Amish Paradise. And Coolio got upset. He's like, you stealing my song? I'm like, no one's stealing your song because it's not your song. You stole it first. So it's like, it's amazing that people believe that they are the original creators of the stuff they stole.
They crazy.
Here is my thing, you know, and I use Ice Cube as an example. When Ice Cube used that song, he was already at that point a certified millionaire.
Yeah.
He was a rich guy. Here is my thing. Instead of stealing someone else's song or pieces of it, you are a rich man. Why don't you go pay a young struggling musician and buy his original music and not steal someone else's and actually help someone else get their start and still stealing established music? That's different when you a guy living in the basement and you trying to get your break. Yeah, you might snippet some old James Brown grooves, but when you are a millionaire and you're doing this, that money that actually you're not paying these people until they sue you or you buy the rights. Most of them don't buy the rights.
No.
They just wish or hope they don't get sued.
I can't understand how little your ego got to be to steal some music that you know is 25 or 30 years old. Well, anybody gonna know? They're old. Where's your ego to be a musician? I guess most of these people are not musicians because everything they do on the board.
Right. Well, it's funny you mentioned that because initially it started off with these guys just literally stealing bars of music.
Yeah.
And when you hear their song, you can tell what song
Yeah.
they stole. Then they start getting sued. Then they started calling themselves being slick. We're going to take snippets of these little bits of songs and find the more obscure or the most obscure record that most people ain't heard and use that. They've hired people and got software, music software, that they can detect and determine where that song came from. You know, so as slick as these other guys try to get, the industry is trying to be a little more slicker. Okay, well, this will conclude this topic and this episode of Tell It Like It Is. And my name is Morris Mann, and my co-host.
I'm Joseph Spencer.
And until next time, keep thinking.